Green Lantern issue 2, Jeffrey Thorne writing with Dexter Soy and Marco Santucci on the art. Now you weren't here for issue 1 of this. Have you read issue 1 and therefore issue 2?
Yes and no. I read issue 1 earlier today because I was like, okay, I really need to read this, and I was like, you know what? I'm not really enjoying this by the end. And then I was like running late on time. I was like, screw it, not reading issue 2. If I'd had more time, I probably would have tried it again because I didn't hate it. I just didn't really like it that much.
What's so funny about this book is that obviously we all had our reservations going in because the writer who did this did the Future State issues, and the one we tried wasn't that good.
Yeah, and then I hear Matt loved this book.
He loved issue 1. He was over the moon. I thought there was some rough edges to issue 1, but I did like a lot of what it was doing and what it was setting up, and some of the questions it was raising about breaking the heart free and bringing magic back and stuff like that, and how that ties into Alan Scott's side of things, and and there's the big ending of the assassination of a Guardian and all that. This issue 2. So issue 1 was a longer issue. It didn't have a backup. It was just, but it got that size of pages, that page count, to say it properly. This issue was normal sized, which I think benefited a little bit because the pacing didn't feel as drawn out. Not that there wasn't a lot happening in that first issue, because there was, but this is 2 issues in now, and both issues are like full of like really big things. Like this also has a big ending where it introduces a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of like setting the table of what Green Lantern is going to be for the next while, what the status quo is. And the funny thing is that it does such a decent job of setting up this is what the status quo is now for Green Lantern going forward, that the ending then adds in this big shock that completely shakes what they've just set up in a different way. And it's like, okay, all right, I need to get my bearings. And that's not even necessarily a complaint. I was kind of into most of what happened in this issue, but it was just, there was so much going on. It's what's so funny is that the complaint we had about the Future State issue that Thorne wrote was that it was essentially lacking plot. It was just a fight.
Meandering and fluff.
Yeah, it was just a fight that went on for the whole issue, and everything they were talking about just felt like it was fluff and filler to justify the action. There is so much plot in these 2 issues of Green Lantern so far that I'm struggling. I'm struggling to keep it all in my head. So without further ado, let me actually talk about this. So the natural event, of course, to follow on from last issue is there's a funeral for the Guardian.
That's hinted by the
cover. Yeah, and we get like some of the Lanterns who are there in person in their sort of their black funeral version of their outfits, which is a nice touch.
No, they're not in those on the cover.
No, but some of the others are there too, but they're not in the black suits because they're being projected because they're elsewhere, right? So they're just like a Green Lantern projection, calling in from afar, and we see that the culprits from the terrorist attack are in cells, and they're the women in particular screaming about her magical return. So it's like, okay, I'm already kind of into this. I'm kind of excited about where they're going with these ideas. They talk about how like an accomplice to these was like a giant dragon creature that they had to fight right after the assassination. So we get some glimpses of that, and they kind of establish these things and how because it's a magically based creature, this dragon thing, they can't just like the ring energy doesn't do anything to it. It just kind of bounces off. So they have to like sort of use the ring energy to like pick up rocks, and that does damage to it. So it's not a big workaround, but it's setting up that maybe there's going to be some obstacles where the rings just don't, handle the magic necessarily well. So we get this big funeral sequence, and the Guardian, who's left here, there's more Guardians, but out of the 2 who were together last issue, she basically makes this announcement that they're completely restructuring the Corps because they have made it into the United Planets. So again, I like the continuity and the shared universe element of, that's actually affecting things, and getting to become a part of that is affecting things. Basically, one of the worries of the other planets in the Federation here, and the United Planets, is that Oa is really powerful. It has like a fleet. It has this the Green Lantern Corps are like thousands of superpowered soldiers that police the galaxy. There's a concern that they have too much power, so they basically say that I think it's 1,200 lanterns are being taken off their sectors, and those sectors are being given to the United Planets like guard, like the Thanagarians or whoever it is that's running that, and they're being taken off that duty, and a bunch of lanterns get reassigned, and it goes down kind of like a lead balloon where they all get, there's like a page where there's all these different, the lantern captions of saying, lantern cruise, you're going to Oshiha, which is a Crux world. And we learn about, so much mythology in this issue. We learn about the Crux worlds and talking about how Earth's one of those, and the Guardian even brings up like why do you think that Earth has had 7 human lanterns in the span of one lifetime? No other planet has had 7 lanterns from the same planet in the span of like a single lifetime. Like Earth is kind of special. It's kind of the Crux. It's the heroic Crux world or something that effect. I'll get to the page itself and be more specific in a minute, but they're all pissed. They're all pissed that they're being assigned elsewhere, that some of the human lanterns are being shoved out to these planets that are far from home. The aliens are all kind of pissed. So John goes to speak to the Guardian and says, okay, what's going on? Why wasn't this discussed with us? Why has this just been shoved in our face? What is this? And there's so much stuff that's brought up here, some of which I've alluded to already. And so it talks about how Earth is going to become the 5th world, right? For a start, right? Which is obviously it's kind of big because we talk about the 4th world all the time. And talks about how some worlds are more vital than others. And Earth is becoming one of those worlds, and some of these Crux worlds have to be defended. But it introduces what the main threat is here, and the mission, because one of the things that I noticed, if you're paying attention during the pages where all the lanterns are getting their new orders, some are being assigned to a new planet or a new sector. Some just say quest, and I did think to myself, what does quest mean? What is quest? And because there is a quest that they're going to be sending over 1,000 lanterns on, which John is going to lead, because they offer him the role of leadership on this mission. So at the edge of the known galaxies, there is a dark realm, and something is infecting it. Something is going on. I'm going to try and get the right dialogue here. Because he asks, like, why didn't you give me or Gardner like planets to look after?
Just while you're finding the thing.
Yeah.
This sounds like something I should be really into.
Yes.
It just sounds like it might also potentially be too dense in this issue for my taste. This sounds like a lot, and you're not even at the end big thing yet.
I'm not. No, the big shock thing comes at the end. So, yeah, the dark sectors. The dark sectors are regions between known space and the Promethean galaxies. That's what it was. I was trying to remember what was on the other side of the dark sectors. That's what I was looking for. The Promethean galaxies. And they talk about how the dark sectors, because they can't look into them, the Guardians are prevented because there's threads of hypertime, eruptions from the bleed, underspace cyclones happening. Lots of big phrases. Lots of really big, cataclysmic, galactic sounding phrases. These barriers are recent. They are clearly artificial. We wish for you to investigate. That's the mission that he's given here. There's like a purpose. And, he basically says something to even 100 lanterns wouldn't be able to deal with this. Like, it was like, oh, you're not going to be alone. You're taking over 1,000 lanterns on a vessel. So they're actually going to have a ship. They're just going to all be flying together because it's such a big long journey, and because there are going to be so many of them. They make a ship, which does look like a Green Lantern construct. And it may actually just very well be like a shared Green Lantern construct that they all do together. But I do wonder if there is actually a core ship under there as well to actually like house them. It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, so it's funny because he feels all kind of prominent here. And one of the things that also gets brought up as well is what some of the other Crux worlds were. Because there's not as many as there used to be. There was supposed to be 7, but this is the line here. 2 were lost. We failed to prevent the destruction of Krypton. So that's cool. Tying in Krypton to this. And then just throws the Guardian just throws this out there. And of course, there is your failure. You remember Zanshi, of course. And I'm like, damn! Wait, blame Judge Stewart for the destruction of one of the Crux worlds. I don't know. It's just this really sad moment. I liked how it came up here though, because sometimes it gets over mentioned with Jon Stewart, I kind of like to hear though, because it made it feel like it was really important, like like along with these other planets. So super interesting stuff here. I'm sure there's a ton of mythology this also ties into. This is the sort of thing that I'm sure Matt's doing deep dives on DC Wiki, and
he definitely is.
He's looking into like what these other Crux worlds are exactly and what they all represent and all the rest of it. But John takes the mission. He's actually quite pleased about it. He's like, he says he's in, and is really quite proud. So the final scenes of the issue is John speaking to Kelly and saying, "Look, you have to go back home. Simon Baz is going to take her back home," and he's like, "Don't worry, they're not going to take the gauntlet away from you yet." And she's insisting that she's a Green Lantern. And he's like, "No, you're not. You're a good person. You're even a hero probably already, because you already try to do your best to help people, but you're not a Green Lantern yet. And one day you probably can be, and you probably will be. But do me a favor. Baz is he's not the most level-headed guy. So while he's keeping an eye on you, keep an eye on him. It's kind of a sweet little, giving her a job. Not a real job, but still, it's a sweet little moment." So he goes up to his big ship, and the ship takes off, and it's this thing where even Baz is looking up, going, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Look at that. This is kind of amazing." And this alien sort of octopus looking thing comes up and starts talking to Kelly, and basically talks about how she's really hungry. And then just out of nowhere at the end of this page, right, there's just a panel where she's sort of looking over to her side, and she says, "Simon, what's wrong with the big battery?" And you turn the page, it's a 2-page spread of the power battery exploding.
Okay.
And a blinding green bright light as like aliens on Oa are just running for their lives. It's like just this, it looks like a nuclear blast going off, but it's the power battery. And we see kind of like reactions around the world, like people like watching this. Like it looks like Mongol's quite pleased when he's watching it on a thing.
I bet he is.
We see like Kyle react to it where he is out in the Vega system. We see a few other reactions. And then presumably this guy in the orange cloak is like the main villain behind this magic group. He says, "Yes, Oa, die quickly. This is mercy, though you don't know it." And the last couple of pages is it's like almost like a POV shot. We see like a green beam of light coming towards Oa, and we go like a POV where we see like the hands out in front, so you don't really know who it is that's coming. And when we see the cities on Oa, it looks like Terminator 2. It looks like there's craters and the buildings look desolate. Like lots of people died here. In fact, the implication here is that everyone who was on the planet, barring one, died. From the sounds of the readings, actually no, that's not entirely true. Every Green Lantern on Oa, barring one, died.
Okay.
So there could be survivors that are not Green Lanterns. They just were on Oa. Maybe that's an important distinction. But because whoever this is, like the ring's searching and says there are 0 Green Lanterns in range, which maybe that isn't the whole planet. Admittedly, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I would assume that's the whole planet. But and you can already kind of see where the swerve's coming here, because technically Kelly's not a Green Lantern, so that's why it's not registering her as a Green Lantern. So. But it's like, so we see a silhouette, this figure, whoever it is going towards this little bubble, right? So Kelly's made a little green bubble and she's trying to protect Baz, and it looks like Baz is dead. Baz is lying there, he's got blood on his hand, he's not moving. Kelly, presumably it's in Portuguese, just saying something and crying at seemingly Baz's dead body, and then the final page reveals who's been flying towards Oa. It's Joe. And Joe looks down at Kelly as she's crying, and that's the final page of the book. And yeah, so the power bar, which makes me, the first question I have, wait, all those lanterns that just went on this mission, can they not recharge their batteries now? Like the rings, like is that them? Like once they run out, is there no more power? At least for now,
presumably.
And does that make Kelly's gauntlet really special because it's not coming from the power? It wasn't coming from the power battery, so. Is she the only technical functioning Green Lantern? Because her, and actually Joe as well, because Joe's ring's separate, right?
Maybe.
From what we read in her book, which obviously we kind of drifted away from because the schedule was so bad. I do want to go back and finish that though. I kind of want to just read the whole thing from the start because it was.
I'm an issue behind,
So
but I think
dense.
there's only been one issue since we dropped off entirely.
That's because it's every other month, and then even then sometimes it gets delayed. But this was exciting. Like this final page was like super. I mean, the whole final scene, like the way it just suddenly happened, where the lantern, the power battery, the big power battery blew up, just felt like a huge deal. And because even before that point, if you take that away, I was already into, okay, there's a big menace out at the edge of space. John's taking a legion of lanterns with Guy to go and see what it is and investigate, and I'm sure that's still going to be a subplot. It sets up this new restructuring of everything. It makes it about something that isn't about the other Lantern Corps, so it's a nice fresh story, at least for me. I don't know what Grant Morrison was doing over the last couple of years, but it felt like a fresh take on Green Lantern. It was playing with a lot of the different characters. It was focused on some that maybe hadn't had as much focus in the last few years, as well as this new character. Two new characters now. But this explosion happens, and you get the sense, because it talked about the magic escaping, like the star being set free. Presumably that's what this explosion of the power battery is. It's like, what's contained within it is being set free. So this could go down the toilet. This could go a number of ways that would be really weird and unsatisfying. But right now, I have to admit, I'm very interested as to where we go from here, because this really sort of shakes up the entire Green Lantern mythos a little bit and says, okay, they're completely screwed. They're like, this is a big deal. And it's funny that I think issue 1 had enough in it to feel like a big proper first issue, but issue 2 almost feels like the second half of a two-parter where this is really like shaking up and establishing that this run's going to be different and try to like move forward and do its own Green Lantern things and whatever. So basically what I'm trying to say, to summarize my thoughts on this issue, is that Matt loved issue 1. I liked what it was doing but had some rough edges. I'm kind of closer to where Matt was in issue 1, where I kind of just loved this issue. So at least 2 of us on this show are going to keep reading Green Lantern, and hopefully we'll continue to feel very positive about it.
I do plan on reading this issue. If we weren't recording on a Thursday, I would have read this in time. But yeah, I just ran out of time.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I like all the things that you've said. It just sounds so dense that I don't know if I'll enjoy reading it, if that makes sense.
I don't actually think it feels that dense in the book, though, bizarrely.
If it doesn't, then that's impressive. Because that was so much you've just got, spewed out for the last 5 minutes.
I generally don't think it does. It's very, like, it explains kind of the aftermath of what happened last issue. We get the funeral with the big announcement, and then John goes to confront them, and we have this conversation, which has a lot in it, admittedly, but, it's all interesting stuff. And then it's him saying goodbye to Kelly, and then the surprise explosion of the battery, and, the tease of Joe at the end. Like, it's really, it's simple enough sections, unless this was a longer issue, and I just, like, I don't think so. Oh, maybe it is. Son. Oh, it does have extra pages. Okay, never mind.
You just didn't even notice. That makes it a little bit better.
Which is a compliment in of itself, quite frankly.
No, it is. It is.
Because I felt the length of the first issue. I didn't feel the length of this one.
I felt it in that first one. I think that makes it more, I don't want to say bearable, because that sounds really harsh. I don't mean it to sound so harsh, but appropriate. That sounds like a more appropriate length for the amount of stuff that you've just told me.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. It still sounds like a lot, but not to quite the same extreme amount as in 20 pages.
Yes, I wasn't even paying attention to the page count. That's, I mean,
no, that's fair enough.
I honestly, like, I'm on board, and I think it's just fascinating actually that they're doing the extra 10 pages, but without a backup. It's actually, it shows a lot of confidence that the creative team has a good direction, and they've got X amount they want in each issue, and it also explains why we're consistently having the 2 artists in the issue between Soy and Santucci. This is super promising. I'm tempted to even go with the 9 here. the only hesitation is, yeah, obviously the art is not super and Santucci is good, but obviously Dexter Soy is better, so there is a little bit of a difference in that. But the art is very solid, but it doesn't stand out. Like, I think, you know, Jimenez's art in Batman, for example, is really standout and feels kind of special. I wouldn't say the art in this feels special. It's just really solid Green Lantern art, right? It's very solid house style kind of stuff.
Yeah.
For the most part, which, you know, so take that as it is. But I'm into everything that's setting up, and it's been a while since I've been able to get excited about Green Lantern, and, you know, having just dropped Wonder Woman, which has been a consistent book for a while, for me. I'm really glad that another corner was able to step up and say, "Hey, we're back to being something you're going to like." So, yeah, screw it, I'll give it the 9. Green Lantern issue 2. I was into it.